Welcome to this week's edition of Networking at Noon. Super excited to be here with you again. I'm Tiffanie Kellog, your hostess, and today I'm joined by De'Nicea Hilton Harper. Welcome, De'Nicea.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Super excited to have you with us. Now, I was taking a look, reading some of the information that you sent over, and you are the author of the upcoming book, I Am Perfect, Your Z-A Playbook to Embrace, Embody, and Express Your Perfect, Authentic Self. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and tell us a little bit more about you, please?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. And this is going to be so fun. I know it is. I feel it in my bones.
Yeah.
With the book, it was inspired really by a lot of what people believe in that actually I found was harming them in a way that it was affecting their physical, mental, emotional, and their spiritual health. So all of a sudden I'm like, why people believe this and it's hurting them? And so what can I do about this? And that's where the idea came from. And so it's Z to A intentionally because it's really calling out how we have a lot of stuff backwards. And it's just hurting us. And so within the book, the idea is that there's like this magic, perfect glitter about us. And that if we could just change like that perception and by changing that perception, what possibilities and potential can actually open up for you, into really allowing your authentic self to come out, your perfect authentic self to come out. And that goes like right along into what I do, right, is helping these women, that's who I work with predominantly, and these playful healing spaces to embrace, embody, and express her perfect authentic self. And with that, like perfect, it's that accepting and really seeing how you're whole and complete. And the more and more that you can really tap into that and allow that to come out, that's where she just finds that she's living more gracefully and peacefully and confidently in her life. And it's just so cool. It's like goosebumps. And then the side effect is the physical, mental, and emotional and spiritual health for her has just improved in a way that it's like, yeah, this is wonderful.
So you mentioned like you help change some of the perspectives. Like, what's an example of something that might be stopping a woman from truly embracing, or acknowledging her perfect self?
Yeah, so let's see. I have so many. I'm like, which one in my head is like the most
I'm not going to limit if there's two or even three. I mean, this is no more than a 30-minute show, so we can't be here for 3 hours or 3 days. I know sometimes people are like, give me a referral marketing tip. And I'm like, you got 3 days because I can give it to you all, like, and still keep going. So I know I'm like putting you on the spot, like, just give me one or two.
Yeah. Okay. So one of them might be whenever she might say there's something that she might want to do, right? And then the response though would be, well, I'm a mom, so I'm not going to do whatever, or I will do whatever. And then I'm going, okay, so despite you being a mother, would you still do it? And then sometimes, well, not even sometimes, oftentimes, all the time, they sit there because they're really thinking about it. And then that's when they actually might change and say, no, I actually really wouldn't do that. Or actually, I really would much rather do this. And just in that, what has happened is like we get to see how we have these roles that we take on. And then with the roles, there's like an identity. But then there's no exploration as to, with the identity comes this culture. And then where is it that the culture norms are coming from? And so like that means then that we kind of like fall into line of, okay, well, just because I'm this mom, but there's plenty of moms, but it's right. There's plenty of moms. But because of the culture that she might be used to, that group may think or believe a certain way that is not congruent with what she'd internally really desire. Right.
Yeah.
And then she would have stopped herself from that simply because of identifying with this culture that she unconsciously was just going along with it. And it's kind of like, well, what if you did do that? Does it change that you're a mother? No. Okay. And then, then like, so what if we go ahead and do it? And then they're kind of like, and then just see what happens. And like, you get to see her light up, like, especially when she would have done like whatever it would have been. Say, for instance, it could be going on a trip and then not cooking before leaving to go on the trip. And it sounds so small and trivial, but it's huge because it's like, she's getting ready for the trip. She's got to get this ready for the husband or the partner, or this for the kids. And then And then it's like, well, you're leaving on the trip. So then like, what's going to happen though? They're still going to eat. Right. Like, and it begins this huge exploration, and like the freedom once doing it that one time of just realizing, wow, okay, I got to do what I really desire to do. I'm still a mom. There's no judgment here. And like, and it changes and I've seen those that have done the opposite, and their physical will have a visceral response. Like literally their body will tense up. They would have body pain, digestive system would change or something like that. All because they went against what they really desired in the first place.
And there's probably a lot of that going on in the world of people trying to live up to others' expectations of themselves, whether it's, parents or partners or spouses or bosses or even kids, neighbors. I mean, my gosh, you got to keep up with the Joneses. I mean, there's all kinds of expectations, I guess, that we're getting bombarded with.
And think about your industry too.
Yeah.
Right? Like we have those norms within our, oh, well, you're in the health and wellness space, so you're supposed to look like or supposed to act like, right? Or if you're in this business space of entrepreneurship or in marketing, you're supposed to. So like even we have all of those little cultural things that I have these identities too, and we may or may not realize it. And all I ask is that we just become aware, because through the awareness is where we could move from doing things so passively and unconsciously to actively choosing and becoming very consciously aware of what we're doing and how we're directing our intention.
So, I just had a question and it just disappeared from me. I was going to say, what's a tip that you could give to somebody if they are trying to be more authentic to themselves? Like, what's a tip that you could give us for making that happen? And I know one tip is not enough to make you're the brand new person or okay with whom you are. But what's one step we can make in the right direction?
And I think I would say the biggest one that might be a great umbrella one would be to go and play. Play like really in the sense of being curious of who you are right now, like, and to know that that's just right now, like it's just present and that's it. And like, you're going to take whatever you learned from the past, and that's here. But then if you are just understanding and offering yourself grace of being right here and trusting yourself right now, and then making your decisions and taking the action, right? And then that's when you learn, is through the action. And then that's when you're either going to have an, oh yeah, I rocked it moment, or it's going to be a, oh, shish kebab. Like, so like, but at that time, like, okay, like there's no need to keep beating yourself up, basically, on the more that you learn about yourself through the curiosity. And so just kind of being there and understanding, like, this is me right now. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I think. And then I have the freedom to change it as I experience life. And then things are going to be different. All right, cool. Like, and just so that way it can kind of alleviate some of that like burden and pressure that we might put on ourselves.
So when you say go play, like what do you mean by go play?
Can be anything. Like that
doesn't really help. I mean,
no, I mean, I'm gonna get like more specific into it, but I say it can be anything because I feel like people put themselves and they'll put themselves in a box of well, play means that I'm going to have to just do board games or card games or go bowling or something like that, right? And so what I'm saying is it includes that, but then also playing, and to me, is any activity that you can do that's going to end up like really tapping into your senses. It's going to end up actually encouraging you to learn more about yourself. And so like play actually has a double meaning for me in the sense that it is activity-based learning, and it's the acronym of the potential and learning about yourself. So play could even simply be taking a shower, but I'm going to do this a little bit differently. And I'm going to shower from my feet going up. What happened? Or if I'm talking to my plants as I'm watering them, I'm just going to have this whole playful conversation with them. Like, you are just so beautiful and like, you're so lovely. And really then seeing what comes of that. Like, it's allowing yourself to kind of like be free and to let loose. And in the everyday, things that we might consider routine, I really do believe that you can add a playful aspect to it. So sometimes even if I'm brushing my teeth, I might actually start like bobbing my head to something else because I'm just gonna start thinking of some song and like it to kind of put some meaning to it so that I can really call myself to be right then and right there. Am I going to change what quadrant I'm going to do first? Shall I do this side? What happens? Like, and then like, so it's really, well, that's what I mean when I say it can be anything, is to get people to really realize like, you don't have to overthink it. It can include, but doesn't have to be, like the physical board games, or it could be LARPing, or it could be whatever on your phone. Those type of things definitely do count. And then there's other ways that you can be playing throughout the day.
Gotcha. So when you work with women, what typically is resulting for them with them? What does it look like when people work with you, and what results for them?
Ooh, the one thing that I get like goosebumps about is when she might come in like in a session or something like that. And she'll describe something that would have happened. Like it would have been a scenario, a circumstance that say it's a relationship with someone that she'd been working with and just trying to figure out like how to handle it better. And she'll come in and then she'll describe that you won't believe it. This happened again. However, this time I was able to respond in this way. And I responded in a way that actually was what it was that I wanted to say. I was able to take away the personal aspect of it, but to really be able to communicate more clearly and to do it confidently. And then actually feeling good about it. Like they felt at peace. And the kicker to it is that it would feel natural. Like there wasn't it wasn't like a whole thing they had to build up anymore. It really was, man, this just like easily came out. This just easily flowed. And it's like, whoa, okay, got it. That's so awesome. Like, and I see it in other ways, like whether it is, if it's like communicating with another practitioner, if it's communicating with a child, if it's even and that's a lot of the mental emotional stuff, right? But even if it's say the physical, it might be that physically I'm feeling more energy. And it's not even like a energy. It's like a very nice, peaceful type of energy, right? Like it's not like a forcing. And then they start to feel like that's just it. They're not forcing anything because they are living and being so much more closer to who they are authentically and feeling like they can do it and that the world isn't going to fall apart, right? That like everything that happens in the day to day just seems to flow with much more ease. And yeah, so it's like, I could really be more of who I am and who I really like, who I am in my head, like, and who I feel. That sometimes, like, it's kind of like Hillary Duff. Oh, what's that show? Do you remember her show? Oh my gosh. Like, she had I have to think about it. There was a show and it was Hillary Duff, and she was so cute. And like, she oftentimes had like a little cartoon version of herself that was like
Lizzie McGuire.
Yes, that's it.
Never watched it before, but I think it was like my sister watched it.
Yeah, that's the show. Well, yeah, that's what would happen is she'd have like this internal thing that was actually like kind of outside of her, but it was an image of her mental. And it's like, but that's just what people do all the time. But then the more that we can actually like be in tune with who we are, and then being okay with expressing it, right? Like, that to me is how things start to feel like you're in flow. That's how it is that you feel like you're moving in grace and all of that. And that's what they describe. Like, it's so subtle, yet it has tremendous moving power for them that it's like, oh yeah, like that's it. And I'm like, you're there. Let's keep building. Like,
yeah, it's interesting as you're sharing this. I remember back when I first did the Room Full of Referrals years and years ago, I really kind of wore my D or my go-getter hat of being professional and on all the time. But if you look at my behavioral style, I've got a lot of I, the promoter, in me. And I'm like, oh wait, I can have fun and do this work thing too. And like, just the flow and the ease and just like, oh, this is so much better. And I have so much more energy because I'm not like always trying to be something I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, it's even like, well, it's kind of like what you say though too in Room Full of Referrals is like, all of us have those, right? Like, and it's just a matter of which ones are much more natural to us, which ones do we call in certain situations more so, like that kind of thing. However, if we can really hone in on that, like what really can come out just so easily and just so naturally, like everything doesn't seem like it's work. And then it is just easier. It's like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like,
I love it. My kind of goal, I'm not necessarily a believer in balance, but I am a believer in harmony. And harmony can be so many things, and it can be disjointed and it can be funky. It can be very, flowing into it. And, I feel like this idea of, just being your perfect, authentic self, who you are, and embracing that just allows us to kind of be in such a powerful way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Just being. And this like, I mean, and I feel like people just have like, if we can let go of these definitions that come from, once again, it comes from the cultural, whatever is set, right? Like, and so once you realize that and you're going, oh, well, it can actually be different for me, just like you had discovered, right? Oh, okay. So it could really be this. And it's like, yeah. And the being is so vital, like to see that it's not. And then that's another thing I usually identify is that people tend to think that their healing is a destination, but it's really like your healing is a journey. And so if you can really appreciate that this is a whole process, it's like, all right, let's just get going. And, at least for this marathon, it's about to be a fun one. You don't have to run the entire time. I don't like running, by the way. That's what, like, you don't have to run the whole time. You can saunter, which I will tell you, I had to run recently and I was like, no. And now it's because I was about to miss my flight. And so I was like, doggone it, I don't like running.
I'll lunge the marathon before I run the marathon. My gosh, no.
I
know. Me and running does not get along. And you know what? I'm perfectly okay with that.
Didn't you did basketball, right?
I used to do basketball, yeah. But yes, you're running like 100 feet at a time. You're not like running long, you're running up and down the court.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I got it.
So speaking of some fun stuff, tell me, when you're not working, what are the things that you like to do?
I know this might come off like, what? But I legit love reading. Like, legit love reading.
I asked on Facebook, I'm like, does reading count as fun? Because my husband does not think it's fun.
Neither does funny.
Okay. And I will say, like, the 30, 40 responses I got, one was they didn't think reading was fun. Everybody else was totally fine. So, De'Nicea, you can tell your husband, Facebook world has spoken, though that's putting reading influence on us from outside people. Tell your husband it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You think it's fun.
Oh yeah. Like I love it. And there will be some times where he's just like, be that face. Because I would, like, even if I come across an article and there might be a video, I go right past the video because I just want to read. And I mean, I can read books in the physical, like there are some that are behind me, but then also audio, if it's ebooks, if I can literally read something, that's totally my jam. And I will just be all immersed into it, and so and we've had this conversation, like my husband and I have had this conversation about like a video versus the reading. And I said, sometimes I think it's because with the video, they have already painted this visual for me. Whereas with reading, I can literally just take these words and like create my own of what it looks like. Yeah. And I think that's where I love going and creating the images in my head of what they mean in their words and all of that. So that's really a lot of fun to be.
One of the things I think with the reading is oftentimes we get in the character's head in a way that we can't in the movies or the TV shows. I mean, very rarely are they narrated. Every once in a while, there's a show that's narrated. But you have to like infer by what the character is doing. And in the book, you actually like, I remember I was recently reading Cujo. And there were a couple of chapters that are from Cujo's perspective. So like you have the dog pre-rabies and you have the dogs post-rabies. And I mean, even the perspective, and that's not like the only Stephen King book where he talks about like from the dog's perspective. It's hysterical. But it was like such a, these things that you don't get. So, okay. So we want to create our own picture of what it looks like. And we want to hear the inner monologue.
Yes. Like, because you can really like immerse yourself in it. And it's like, and then I would say cooking is one of my other ones. Like when I feel like the cooking is fun, like not the crap, I got to make something kind of feeling, but when it's fun. The one thing that I love about it is like, it's so cool how you have your counter of your ingredients. And it's like, you guys are all separate. And then when I put you together, there's magic that happens. And then like all of a sudden, here's this plate. And like, I like plating. And so that's what I'll watch the shows for, is to get ideas of plating. And I don't agree with the whole, let me put a flower here that you're not going to eat, or like things that you're not going to eat. I do agree with that rule when they say that in the shows, and they're like, I would not put anything on a plate that people are not going to eat, like, but I love that part. And I will, I'll take recipes. I'll have an idea of a dish and like, but I'll actually look at 3 or 4 recipes and literally create my own out of it. And so like baking is not really my thing. I will bake, but it's not my preference. Yeah. And it's because you have to stick to, you got to stick to the recipe, because otherwise you got stuff falling out of the pan, you got stuff sinking. And so with cooking, I just am like, no, let me just mix this look about right. Like, and then
cooking's more of an art, whereas baking is a science.
Yes.
I think I've heard it referred to.
That's so true. That's
Don't do really either. Great. If I can help it. Like twice a year, cooking is playing for me. The rest of the time, no.
What 2 times then?
Well, every once in a while, like if I'm home and I haven't had a busy schedule and, I'm like, I want to cook Rob a meal. But that usually is only a couple times a year where I'm like excited to cook. The rest of the time it's work. And I try not to do anything that's work. Speaking of work, because you're helping people, be this authentic, perfect self. Do you have a tip for the people out there watching? Like, what's a way that I can be less stressed at work? Because sometimes we do have to kind of morph and be maybe even somebody that we're not at work. So how can we be less stressed at work?
Less stressed at work. I would say that find out what your energy levels are. Like, so sometimes I think the stress comes from, say for instance, they might have to do something, even if it is something that they don't like to do or whatever, but it would be at a time of the day that's not their best time of the day. And so it even makes it so not only are you dealing with crap, now I got to do this, but then now you're doing it outside of what it would be your natural time, or a time that would make it more tolerable. So like if there's a way, and I understand that for some people that they can't, so if, but if, or they may actually can, they just might have to ask and see if it's possible. Because I think sometimes that's another limitation, is people just think, no, they're not going to let me. And then, but they would have never tried. So like, I would say even try, but to kind of assess, okay, what time of day, like for instance, I know I do better interacting with other people later on in the day. So I try to do meeting stuff if I can, like later in the day. And then towards the end of it, right around like 4ish, is when I start to go more internal. So then that'd be the best time for me to do pitches or to do writing or things like that, because I would have now turned more internal. So if you can, like that, I think will alleviate some of the stress throughout the workday, is just kind of identifying what are your pockets of time, and like, and not thinking that you have to perform for a whole, like whatever your shift is. Like if it, and so because then you're honoring your own natural cycles and the times where you might need a break, or the times when you want to be more internal versus more external, you're actually just kind of working with it. And so like kind of like identifying it and then putting your schedule to that, I think would help with the stress as much as possible.
It's a really good point. I know for me, because I'm on Zoom most days. And so when people are asking for evening things, I mean, if I'm speaking at an event, yeah, even if I'm up at midnight to speak in Australia, however, I'm going to be like taking naps in the day and doing stuff. And when people are like, hey, you want to do a Zoom at 7 p.m.? I'm like, I want to get in bed by 8. And so, yeah, then it does stress me out the whole day. Like I've got to Zoom super, super late at night.
You're thinking about it well before.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking about it like all week. I'm like, what am I doing with a Zoom at 7 p.m.? I'm the type, I like to get up at 5 a.m. and, you know, by 9, I've usually done an hour or two of work, an hour or two workout and meditation, made some form of breakfast that takes minimal amount of cooking. You know, I've got some stuff done. But those 7 p.m., I'm like, oh, I'm ready.
Yeah. See, and that to me is just awesome. Like, cause it's, you know, when your peak times are and what they are, what activities would go with that. And then but I know what you're talking about. Mine's the opposite. Like if I am trying to like speak something and they're like, oh, it's going to be 2 p.m. their time. Like they might be in like in the UK or something. And I'm like, what time is that for me? And then I'll go, like one time I did something at 6 a.m. and I could hardly sleep because I was stressing out that I had to be up at 6 a.m. And so I was like, why did I even do that? So even I will go and question it. Sometimes I do it to test myself in the sense of, oh, I wonder if this version of me may have changed a little bit. So I'll just experiment and try it out, see what happens. And then once I do, then I'm like, you ain't gonna do that again. Like I don't care. Like when people say, oh, if you really want whatever, then you'll do. I get that to a certain extent. I think that if it's like a long period of time though, like over consecutive weeks, it's not sustainable for me.
It depends on whether we see it as work or play. And like, that's my whole thing. You know, a lot of times when I'm speaking, it's kind of playing and kind of working. And so it fits all together. And speaking of that, so last year you did Asentiv's Ignite Your Business program. And today's show, Networking at Noon, is sponsored by Asentiv. And I know you took the program at a very unique time. A lot of times people, when they come and take Asentiv, they're, you know, working on continuing the success within their business, but you had a major switch in your business last year, appropriately timed, apparently. And then you took the Ignite Your Business. So for those people out there watching, can you share, what did Ignite Your Business do for you and your business?
Ooh, I want to say that it was cool in the sense of like, if you think about a building and you're putting down your foundation and stuff, right? Like, I understand that the foundation of learning more about myself is laid, but after closing my brick and mortar, it was like, okay, now what are we doing and in what ways? And so I saw that Ignite Your Business, that's where it came in to help with, all right, so from this new perspective, answer these questions, fill in these things. Like, what is your vision now? What is your mission now? Like, who are you really wanting to work with? Where are they? And then what would they be getting out of it? And what is your schedule like? So that to me was awesome because it helped me to shift even better, I want to say, like, as far as, all right, we cut this off and then now we got this, and then like be here in this space and answer these questions from this lens. What does that look like? And so I find that that's where it was really, really beneficial for me to just get going in that aspect of business. So, and I think that would be really cool for anyone who's realizing like, oh, I'm kind of over it on this part. I do want to just go a completely different direction. And so I think that would still be helpful to actually participate, and go into Ignite Your Businesses. Like, well, now we're just really literally igniting this part, this version from a different space, and to be like guided was really awesome. And then to have the working time was really helpful to really just kind of like get me in that space every week of, all right, now what are we doing? Okay, cool. Let's go.
Awesome. And I mean, in Ignite Your Business, we talk a lot about, referrals. And I always then joke that we should rename it relationship marketing. And so I know we were talking about, what's one tip that you have for people when it comes to networking and building referrals? And I was wondering if you would share that with us.
Yeah, I would say that it goes right along with our theme for today. Like just be who you are authentically. I think that is what people feel. They're not necessarily, they logically are associating you with a business or with your product or service, but they're going to feel who you are. They're feeling you out already. Right. And I think like if you can stay as close to knowing more about yourself and then allowing that to show up and kind of like doing away with some of the things that we said, right? Like as far as just because it's this industry look, if you don't have that look, that's fine. And actually, the more real you are with yourself, you'll find that more people appreciate it and they will feel more comfortable to be themselves. And it kind of has this ripple effect. And then that's your way that you just connected. And like, that's what they're going to remember. And whenever they think like, oh, you know what? I do know somebody who blah, 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 blah. You're going to love them because of blah, 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 blah. They're not even noting your product or service. They're noting stuff about you. Like whenever people are making those referrals, it's like the service and product stuff to me tends to come afterwards. That it's more of like, you're going to like them because they do this. They like that. You guys are going to love talking about Baby Yoda. Like it's going to be like that's what people, so it's kind of like allow that to come out whenever you're building those relationships and just kind of be there with them in that space and then allow the business stuff to come in after.
Cool. And I love the fact that you were able to work Baby Yoda into the video. Awesome. All right. 2 last questions for you, and then we'll wrap it up. So what's your like top tip or suggestion for the general public in relating to kind of the conversations that we've had today?
Top tips of general conversation. Say it again.
You were talking something about involving all aspects.
And top tips for involving
we had talked about this earlier, that sometimes we get a little off topic. So you were talking about holistic health, healing being a process.
Yes.
Being more sustainable and transform transformational from within, as it involves all the aspects for you.
Yeah. Like, and okay, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, what would it be? Okay, so top tips. One is, I'm going to reiterate basically that the healing is a journey, it's not a destination. So be present and patient, like offer yourself grace through that journey, is one of my biggest tips. The second would be really realizing that you are perfect now. And I think that the more you say it and the more that you start to act in it, then the belief will come, because some people may have a hard time believing it because of conditioning that many already have. So
if I said, I'm not perfect because I don't have a college degree, because my hair is too short, too long, I'm too fat, too skinny, I'm too tall or too short, I'm, I sleep too much or I don't sleep enough.
mm-hmm.
How do we combat that? Here's our mind trash.
Yeah.
I'm perfect.
So two things. One is the perfect is that you're whole and complete as you are. Second is a lot of those statements that we might say are actually based on judgments. And when there is that judgment, there actually means that there was a comparison that was done. And so when you start to compare, then now you're taking yourself against something else. So it's not like you're too short. It's not that you're too tall. You are 5'2". Like that's what it is, right? Like, and because guess what? If I were to take you and put you amongst a group of those that were 4'10", you are taller, right?
Yeah.
Or if I put you next to Shaq, like we go and meet him, then you are shorter. So you see that there's comparison, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can, then it's realizing like, oh, I'm whole and complete as I am. There is no like comparison, and there isn't, because you were made in the likeness of you. And the more you can kind of stand into that, and I'll give you a physical thing, how there's like that pose that you do right here. Yeah. This is one of the most fun things that I learned when I was in school.
Those power poses.
Yeah. So guess what? There's actually some Meridian Chinese medicine channels that actually run along the side. And when you do that pose, you're actually tapping into some points that deal with courage. So if you have to, and even if that was my way of logically getting you like, oh, there is something to it, do it. Like tap literally into those points that are already within your body to bring out that courage within yourself, and understand that you are whole and complete. You're not broken. You're not fragmented. It's just you. It's who you are.
Gotcha. Matt Wilkerson said, mind trash. Never heard it said like that. I'm keeping it. Yeah. And I like the phrase mind trash because it doesn't, like, to me, trash doesn't belong in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's mind trash. It's stuff you need to get rid of. But I love that idea of, stop the comparisons and let's just kind of be who you are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And when you realize, like, if you're observing, say you're scrolling or whatever, if you actually are aware of your thoughts, you kind of can see when there's more of them that happen. So more of those thoughts can come up during certain things. Is it scrolling through Facebook? Is it on Instagram? Is it on LinkedIn? Is it on YouTube that those thoughts start really coming up? And if so, then you just identified your tickler. I like calling them tickler. I don't like calling them triggers because that's just related to gun stuff. But the ticklers, they're tickling you to get your attention, right? And so if that's one of your ticklers, then take a break, remove it, and just recalibrate. So like, I think, yeah, that would be one of my other tricks.
All right. So last question, much easier question. What's your favorite brew?
My favorite what?
Brew. So this can be anything that's brewed: coffee, tea, liquor, beer, and kombucha all fall into the brew.
There's a blend. Dirty chai would be a dirty chai. And then I do tend to drink some bourbon if I'm going to drink anything alcoholic.
So do you mix the dirty chai with the bourbon?
Or no, I haven't. They're separate things. But
Now I'm sitting here thinking.
I know. Because I'm like, wait, they do have some nice honey flavors that would go well with that dirty chai. So now I'm thinking about it.
All right, so we'll have to post whoever tries it first, because I'm always up for trying something. And we've been on a bourbon and a whiskey kick of late, so I'm sure we've got a bottle or a few laying around. I know I have black chai tea. I'm gonna have to find dirty chai.
Well, so what makes a dirty chai is literally taking the chai tea and then you're putting espresso in it.
Oh, okay. I'm so not doing that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think you like the coffee.
I don't do coffee. Yep. Nope. We're passing on the dirty chai. Y'all enjoy the dirty chai. But maybe I'll try chai.
But do the chai tea with the honey bourbon.
Yeah, I think I'll try that one. Well, De'Nicea, for people that are out here watching today and want to know more about you, where can we find you?
Ooh, y'all can come check me out at The Perfect Playground. That's my jam. That's my online community that I created. And so that's theperfectplayground.com. If they're on LinkedIn, I'm there too. And Facebook. All of it is De'Nicea Hilton are going to be the handles for those.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, De'Nicea, for being here with us today. Thank you all so very much for either watching us live on Facebook or watching the replay on YouTube. Glad to have you with us. Next week, we will be joined by Jake Alexander of Action Accounting. And we're going to talk about getting your coworkers and team all working well together, as well as learning more about what he does. So we will look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same channel.